Today's silence for the Prime Minister.
My Lord Mayor, my late Lord Mayor, Your Grace, my Lord Chancellor, Mr. Speaker, Your Excellencies, my Lords, Aldermen, Sheriffs, Chief Commoner, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, thank you for this opportunity to dress up as if we were extras in Downton Abbey. Now that our Sunday nights are so empty, this is a pleasure, although I felt in my own circumstances I rather needed Mr. Bates to help me out. Can I wish you well with your year ahead as Lord Mayor and the travel that you inevitably will do for our country right across the globe. I've had a year of interesting travel myself. One of the highlights was going to Australia, to the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting and chairing a meeting of all the countries who have the Queen as their head of state, where we agreed in a historic agreement that if the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge have a little girl, that girl will be our Queen. At the end of this meeting, I turned to the Australian Prime Minister and said, "Thank you very much, Julia, for allowing us to have this meeting in Australia." And she said, I can't quite do the accent, but I'll try, "Not a bit, David. This is good news for Sheilas everywhere." Last year, I spoke about focusing our foreign policy on one objective, promoting Britain's national interest. Tonight, I want to explain why that means a strong and open approach to the world, one that both helps us and helps others. There are those who look at the upheavals in North Africa or the crisis in the Eurozone and conclude that for Britain, the best way forward is to draw back. Stay out of Libya, because nothing good ever comes from such interventions. Cut the aid budget, because the money is always wasted. Europe is heading in the wrong direction without any chance of reform, so think of giving up. Promoting trade with economic powers like Russia or China always means walking away from the values we believe in, so don't. I think those arguments are fundamentally wrong for three reasons. First, they fail to appreciate that in today's world, others' problems are our problems too. Second, they forget that our strength as a country is built on our economic strength, and that means engaging in the world economy, fighting for free trade, making sure British interests get heard. Third, we have advantages that we should make the most of, like one of the most open economies in the world, or our brilliant armed forces, whose sacrifice and service we rightly commemorated again this weekend. So tonight I want to explain how we can use our influence and confront the pessimism that claims we cannot make a difference. The Arab Spring is one of those extraordinary moments when the will of the people changes the world. But it also directly matters to us. Yes, change brings risk, and no one expects a simple, straight-line progression from dictatorship and stagnation to democracy and prosperity. But in the long term, developing the building blocks of democracy is the best way for the Arab world to secure stability, progress, and prosperity, which is in all our interests. In Libya, it is true, we didn't have to get involved. Some told us we shouldn't because they said it could only end in failure. Some said we couldn't because they said Britain didn't have the military might anymore. Well, to those who predicted failure, look at what we have achieved. We saved civilian lives as Gaddafi's tanks bore down on Benghazi. We helped the Libyan people to liberate themselves. And we now have the prospect of a new partner in the southern Mediterranean, stronger alliances with our friends in the Gulf, and a refreshed defence relationship with France. And I would argue that our action helped to keep the Arab Spring alive. And it's also worth noting that although Gaddafi agreed to declare and dismantle all his weapons of mass destruction, and although we made real progress diminishing the threat he posed, in the last few days we have learnt that the new Libyan authorities have found chemical weapons that were kept hidden from the world. Some will look at Libya and ask, is this a new British doctrine for intervention? Next time, will we just charge in regardless? My answer is no. Look at the reasons for the success of the Libya campaign. We set limited goals and we stuck to them. We worked with allies. We went through the United Nations. We had the support of the people. We didn't presume to tell the people what sort of government they should have. But we held our nerve when critics here said we should give up. We should be grateful for the incredible skill of the British and other coalition pilots who ensured that the number of civilian casualties of the air attacks was so low. The role of the Arab League was crucial. And on that note, we should welcome their decision this weekend to suspend Syria's membership. To those who said Britain didn't have the resources to intervene in Libya, let me just say this. We deployed 8 typhoons in Libya. We've got 72, with more on the way. We deployed 16 of 136 tornadoes and 5 of our 67 attack helicopters. This operation was well within our capabilities and will remain so. And to those who question the Strategic Defence and Security Review, let me tell you, those of us responsible for it didn't spend a single day of the Libya campaign wishing we had taken things more slowly. On the contrary, Libya underlined the need for us to reshape our armed forces as rapidly as possible. Fewer main battle tanks, more drones, more helicopters, more transport aircraft. We are going to need a different kind of military to meet different kinds of threat. Deployment of our military brings me directly to Afghanistan. 10 years after 9/11, and after 385 of our servicemen and women have given their lives, the whole country wants to know the answer to 2 questions. Why are we still in Afghanistan, and for how much longer? Let me answer. We are there to prevent Afghanistan from ever again being used as a base from which to launch attacks on this country or our allies. And of course, people say you cannot make progress in Afghanistan without tackling terrorism and the deep-seated problems of Pakistan. And they are right. That is why we're squeezing the problem of terrorism from both sides of the Durand Line. And Al-Qaeda has been seriously weakened with the death of bin Laden and so many of its senior leadership in the tribal belt of Pakistan. Terrorism feeds on broken countries, so our response must go far beyond tackling the leadership of terrorist groups. That is why Pakistan is set to become the biggest recipient of British aid. It is also why we've been engaging at every level, not just politicians, but security and military chiefs as well. We are now reaching the point when the Afghans can secure their own country for themselves. That is why I've been very clear, and I repeat here tonight, by the end of 2014, there will be no British troops serving in Afghanistan in a combat role. Somalia is a failed state that directly affects and threatens British interests. Tourists and aid workers are kidnapped, young British minds poisoned by radicalism, mass migration, vital trade routes disrupted. Meanwhile, Somalis themselves suffer extreme famine, made worse by violence and some of the worst poverty on earth. We shouldn't tolerate this. Somali pirates aren't invincible. They are violent and lawless men in small boats, and it is time we properly stood up to them. That is why British vessels can now carry arms. But there is a real and pressing need to pull together the international effort. That is why Britain will host a major conference in London next year to focus attention on protecting merchant ships passing through the Gulf of Aden, tackling pirates, pressurizing the extremists, supporting countries in the region, and addressing the causes of conflict and instability in Somalia. The next area where the pessimists say that Britain should pull back is aid. I believe in the moral argument for aid, that we have obligations to the poorest in our world. But I also believe that it is in our national interest. Isn't it better to help stop countries disintegrating rather than end up dealing with the consequences for our own country? Immigration, asylum, terrorism. Aid can help us to avoid crises before they explode into violence, requiring vast military spending. And the answer to the legitimate concern that too much aid money gets wasted isn't to walk away, it is to change the way we do development. By 2015, UK aid will secure schooling for more children than we educate in the entire United Kingdom, but at 1/40th of the cost. We will help vaccinate more children against preventable diseases than there are people in the whole of England. That is the kind of aid I believe in and what we will secure for the future. In Europe, as the Lord Mayor said, these are times of great change. Old assumptions are collapsing. It was said that no exit from the euro could ever be envisaged, that membership of the EU would always lead to ever closer union, that rules and structures were like a ratchet, always getting tighter. Powers would only go one way, to the centre. And now everything is changing. Right now, fears about Europe's economic future are understandably intense. Think how the European Union, as it is tonight, looks to those with growing economies watching from Sao Paulo, from Delhi, or indeed from Washington. Not as it should be, a place to admire and emulate, but a source of alarm and crisis. Now, Britain is not some dispassionate observer. We are a member of the European Union. The strength of our own economy is closely linked to the rest of Europe. So we have a profound national interest in ensuring the swift resolution of the crisis in the Eurozone and a return to growth. What was the European Community, now the EU, has been an effective anchor for democracy and prosperity. It has helped transform Eastern Europe, build alliances, boost trade, knock down old obstacles to freedom and success. But today, to the outside world and to the citizens of its own countries, the EU's achievements are dramatically overshadowed by its problems. It's not just the crisis in the Eurozone, urgent and all-consuming though that is. It's how out of touch the EU has become when its institutions are demanding budget increases while Europe's citizens tighten their belts. It's the pointless interference, rules and regulations that stifle growth, not unleash it. The sense that the EU is somehow an abstract end in itself, immune from developments in the real world, rather than a means of helping to deliver better living standards for the people of its nations. It does not have to be like this. Out of crisis can come opportunity for the European Union if its member states are ready to grasp it. Now is the chance to ask, what kind of Europe do we actually want? For me, the answer is clear. One that is outward-looking, with its eyes to the world, not gazing inwards. One with the flexibility of a network, not the rigidity of a bloc, whose institutions help by connecting